Hello everyone, welcome back to another problem tutorial from chapter 2 of BUS 325 investment course. In this particular video we're going to be looking at problem number 16, so let's read the problem together. It says find the equivalent taxable yield of the municipal bond in problem 14 for tax brackets of 0, 10%, 20% and 30%. Okay? Now here, what we're doing is the opposite of what we have done in problem 14. Okay? To simplify this further, I'll do a small sketch for you. Hopefully, it will help you understand the situation. So here, let's say this is a municipal bond. Okay? And let's say this is a corporate bond. Okay. The municipal bond, as we have explained in class, is tax exempt. Okay. What do we mean by that? We mean that whatever rate that you generate from the municipal bond is going to be completely in your pocket. It's going to go completely in your pocket. Okay, so if it pays 4%, you're going to get that 4% interest and it's going to be all yours. Okay, but the corporate bond is taxable, meaning that whatever interest rate that you're going to generate or whatever yield that you're going to generate from the corporate bond, you're going to have to take a cut from that depending on your tax bracket and pay it for the government in taxes. Okay? So what does that mean? That means that we cannot directly compare the two. If we have the yield of this, let's say 4%, and this pays also 4%, it's not equal. It's not the same. Because this 4% is going to be all yours. It's going to go directly to the investor. Okay? But this 4%, it's going to go into two parties. It's going to go to the investor, but before the investor, it's going to go to the government. Or a cut from that, it's going to go to the government. Let's say this investor pays 30%, so 30% is going to go to the government and he will take the remaining 70%. This is why when we want to compare the yields of two bonds, one of them tax exempt and the other is taxable, we need to first transform this particular rate here, either this municipal bond rate, we calculate the we call the equivalent taxable yield. Okay, the equivalent taxable yield. Okay, or we do the opposite. We take the rate of the corporate bond and transform it into the after-tax yield, right? The after-tax yield. Now, what we have done in problem 14 and 15 is that we have taken this corporate bond rate and we have transformed it or calculated the after-tax yield, right? But in this particular problem, problem 16, we're going to do the opposite. We're going to take the municipal bonds rate and we're going to calculate the equivalent taxable yield. It's the opposite. Okay? What is the formula that we're going to use to calculate the equivalent taxable yield? It's equivalent taxable yield equals the return on the municipal bond over 1 minus the tax rate. Okay, so we changed the formula around to do the opposite of what we've done in problem number 14. Okay, Now, what was the rate on the municipal bond in problem number 14? If you guys remember, it was 4%. So let's write it here as a side note. Rate of return on municipal bond equals 4%. It's not given in the question, but if you refer back to problem number 14, you're going to see that the rate of return on the municipal bond was 4%. Okay? And the scenarios we had, there was 4 of them. One assumes a tax bracket of 0%, the second one 10%, third is 20%, and the fourth scenario assumes a tax rate of 30% for the investor. Okay, so we'll do a similar situation. Okay, part A, tax rate equals 0%. Okay, in that case, the equivalent taxable yield equals the rate of return on the municipal bond, which is 4%, over 1 minus 0%. So that also equals 4%, which puts both the corporate bond and the municipal bond at the same exact rate of return. Okay, so in that case, the investor could invest in either one of these. Invest in either bond, because both of them are going to generate him a return of 4%. Okay, or both of them are going to yield 4%. In the second scenario, B, tax rate equals 10%. Okay, so based on that, the equivalent taxable yield is going to equal 4% over 1 minus 10%. Okay, now we're going to have to refer to our calculators. 0.04 divided by, open a bracket, 1 minus 0.10. Close the brackets. And that's going to equal 0.0444, which is equal to 4.44%. Rounded. Okay. So in this case, what would be best for the investor if he has an option to invest in a municipal bond that offers him 4%? Okay, then he will need to have another offer for the corporate bond, or he needs the yield on a corporate bond to be at least 4.44% to compete with that municipal bond. So if he receives an offer to invest in a corporate bond that offers him, let's say, 4.1%, he is better off investing in the municipal bond. Okay. Let's now see the third scenario. Let's add an extra page. We're going to need it. C, the tax rate equals 20% this time. The equivalent taxable yield 4% on the municipal bond over 1 minus 20%. Go to the calculator. 0.04 divided by, open a bracket, 1 minus 0.20, close the bracket, and that will equal 0.05, which is equal to 5%. Okay? So if our investor has to pay 20% in taxes, and he has an offer to invest in a municipal bond that gives him 4%, for a corporate bond to compete with this municipal bond, it has to at least offer 5%. Okay? Because the 5% he's going to generate, he's going to pay 20% of that to the government, and the remaining 80% is going to go to him. Okay? And the remaining 80% of the 5% is going to be that 4%. So this is the point where both the municipal bond, which is tax exempt, is going to offer an identical yield to the corporate bond. Okay? The last scenario, D, tax rate equals 30%. In that case, the equivalent taxable yield is going to equal 4% over 1 minus 30%. Okay, go to the calculator, 0.04 divided by, open a bracket, 1 minus 0.30, close the bracket, and that's going to give us 0.0571, which is equal to 5.71%. Okay, and again, same interpretation applies. If the investor needs to pay 30% taxes, then for him, if he has the option to invest in a municipal bond or a corporate bond, and the municipal bond pays 4%, then the corporate bond at least, or needs to yield at least 5.71% to be competitive, or to be considered as an alternative investment. Okay, so that is the hurdle rate, or the cutoff point. So if the taxable bond pays out more than 5.71%, then the corporate bond is going to be the better investment. If it pays out less than 5.71%, then he's better off to invest in the municipal bond and take the 4% yield. Okay? I hope that you found this video useful. This is how you can solve this particular problem number 16, and any similar question. Again, just remember, we have two scenarios to compare a taxable bond with a tax exempt bond. Okay, we can either take the taxable bond and calculate the equivalent after tax yield, okay, to compare between the corporate bond and the municipal bond, or we can take the rate on the municipal bond and calculate the equivalent taxable yield. Okay, as long as you understand this, you should not have any problem with any scenario or any style of question that you might get on this specific topic, on comparing municipal bonds and corporate bond yields. Okay, I wish you the best of luck. If you still have any questions, as always, please feel free to drop them down in the comments. And until I see you in the next problem tutorial, keep on learning. Take care.